All right, we got How Did We Get Here podcast. Today we got a good friend, Ian Berger. Did I say that right?
Correct.
Ian is a 2-time CrossFit game athlete, an 8-time regional athlete. He's been an open CrossFit affiliate at the age of 18. And then you also went to NYU and received your bachelor's. I'm just finding that out. So one of the great things about this is I know Ian, like we were just talking about.
Yep.
But I don't really know Ian.
We were neighbors.
Yeah, we were neighbors. We lived in very close proximity.
Yeah.
So I'm super excited about today and just getting to know more about you and dive in. And I know your story is going to add a lot of value to a lot of other people. This is the first one that I've done in the morning. Normally, I'm pretty don't talk to me in the morning. So
really?
Yeah.
See, if we would have done this at night, you would have got a totally different side.
Really?
In the morning, I'm shooting laser beams from my eyes. That's 3 p.m., 4 p.m. in the afternoon. Not so much.
You're just out. You're just out.
Not good.
Yeah. So far, so good.
Good.
Talking a lot.
You're capping
I'm capping. I got I'm ready to go. Normally it's Miller Lights, but I feel like if I brought that here today, it wouldn't look very good, you know.
There would definitely be some judgment.
Got a lot
in the morning.
Got a lot of things to do today. Yeah. So super excited to have you on and hear your story, man. And so I guess kind of starting off. So were you born in New York?
Yep. So born and raised in New York. Was raised in a suburb called Oceanside in Long Island. Everybody thinks of New York and thinks like big city, but it's kind of similar to Charleston here, Mount Pleasant area, very suburban area. I grew up playing soccer, pretty active, surfed, snowboard, skateboard, but soccer was my sport of choice. Ended up playing a year in college and then trying my hand at soccer in Bolivia. And then got into fitness. The rest is kind of, interesting whirlwind of a story.
That's crazy. So soccer was it?
Yeah, that was my sport. So it was kind of one of those things where like age 4 started playing, was like scoring like 5 goals a game and
just crushing it.
My dad was like, all right, this is it. This is what we're doing. You're playing soccer. You're good at this. So
yeah,
I played up until 18 years old.
Oh, that's cool.
I found CrossFit when I was 16 or 17, but was never really too serious about it. Was using it to kind of supplement soccer. And then around 18, I started really falling in love with the sport of CrossFit and fitness and all things gym.
That's cool. So I forgot a couple really important things.
Yeah.
You are the husband of Amy. You are, who's also a freaking amazing athlete and a rock star.
She's a 6 times games athlete.
So no way.
She's a complete savage.
Yeah, she's a monster.
She's an Olympic lifter. She's competed in the Pan Am Games. She's a complete animal. And I have a 4-year-old, which friends with your son, Legend.
Yeah.
So yeah, husband, father, son.
Husband, father, owner of PWR.
Correct.
A pretty awesome gym in Charleston area over here, Mount Pleasant.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to make sure that I say everything.
No, I'm sure we're gonna be all over the place today, but it'll be fun.
So your parents, were your parents all in on getting you in athletics at a young age?
I don't have great hand-eye coordination. I used to wear glasses when I was little, but foot-eye or balance sports always came pretty naturally to me.
Yeah.
But I liked it. I was good at it, so they kind of pushed me to just see how far I could take it.
Yeah. And I know that your dad has a pretty awesome background of powerlifting and
so my dad is, and I actually got him into fitness. His story is pretty wild, which I'm sure we'll touch upon, but he's competed at the CrossFit Games. He is a gold medalist at USAW Olympic lifting nationals. He's state record holder for clean and jerk and snatch. Same with powerlifting. He's just he's about to be 67 and the guy's just hard charging.
Yeah. It's crazy. Yeah. He's always super fun to talk to.
Oh, he's electric. That dude, you plug in and you'll get energy.
Yeah.
Complete opposite of me. I'm very introverted, but he's hug you when you first meet.
Yeah, he's very New Yorkish.
Oh yeah,
I feel like
very much so. Yeah,
like you can like tell like down here you can tell people like pretty easily. You're like, okay, you're from the Northeast, probably New York.
Which is funny because I've only lived here 2 years, but like I definitely could sense it too. Where I'm like, now I understand why most people from South Carolina are like, I'm not going to use the word polarized from the people from the Northeast, because it's like could be abrasive, could be over the top. The social cues are a little bit different down here.
Yeah.
So
it's interesting. Like you never really, unless you like remove yourself from one environment and put yourself right in the other. Like I just feel like you never experience that.
Yeah.
And I think it's been such a really cool thing for me to see, because I think that's something that really grows you.
You guys are from Illinois?
Indiana.
Indiana. Yeah. I knew it was with an I.
Yeah.
Close.
It was close. Like in my hometown is like on the border of Illinois and Indiana. Yeah. So basically the same
close
thing.
Enough.
A lot of cornfields, nothing to do. Great people though.
Perfect.
Great people.
How big was your high school?
I was at a decent high school. We were 4A, so back in the time, but like the parameters of our town is like insane because like our town's massive. Yeah. But I think I graduated with like 200. It's like 220 kids. Yeah. Our high school was, I think, overall like 1,200 ish.
Okay.
But like our town was massive. Yeah. Because of all the farmland. Yeah. So like
drive your tractor to school day.
Yeah, yeah. Oh yeah. There was like senior day was like the last day of school, everybody drove their tractors and stuff. And it's one of the things that like I know like it was a very small community. Like everybody was at the games on Fridays, everybody's talking about it. Like there's like everybody's writing on the windows for the games, just like small town living. Yeah. And like that's one thing that I really want to give to Legend, because I thought like for me, like looking back at that time of my life, like I really appreciated growing up like that. And I just don't think that's gonna really happen here.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I played soccer and kind of had the same thing in my town. So it wasn't like a huge town. That like it wasn't farm or rural, but it definitely was community based. So like my high school, I think there was 2,000 to 3,000, which is big, but it was community based. Like everybody knew each other. Friday night lights for football, and soccer, and all the sport, lacrosse, and all the sports. Like it definitely felt like you're part of a tribe and community, and everybody knew each other, and you were raised in this little community from like kindergarten to like high school. I do think it's important. Like for me, soccer was the widget. It took me like to different states. It took me to different countries when I was younger, and it gave me like perspective of like different ways of life and culture. So I think that's important in terms of like getting out of the bubble that you might feel is home, as comfortable as that may feel. And I think that's kind of yielded to me not being so like stuck on that, or like needing that to feel at home.
Yeah, I think that's why I struggle sometimes. So like we moved from Indiana to Somerville, and that transition was like really hard for me, because I'm like I want to be around people I know, and I want to have a routine and stuff like that. So we finally settled in Somerville, and then we moved to Mount Pleasant, and I'm like back to square one. I don't know anybody. I'm like out of my routine. I don't know the roads. I'm like still Googling everything, you know. Do you Google anything anymore?
Not anymore. I've kind of found my way. We actually just moved out to Awanda, which you know, but I kind of like the beauty of being unknown, right? Yeah. Like it gives you the ability to like recreate who you are, or rethink of the things or patterns that you've maybe done in the past, and see if they're still serving you. Like it's really easy to get stuck in your ways when you're like doing the same thing, seeing the same people. In New York, when I was living in the city, or in Queens, or like major cities like that, it made me very self-sufficient in the sense that like you could either feel like a number in a big city like that, or you just find your own tribe or find the things that light you up. So I think that's given me the ability or skill to move somewhere different and know that like you just seek out the people. You find the thing that lights you up, whether it's fitness, whether it's church, whatever it may be. Community is always attainable because like-minded people usually congregate in certain places.
Yeah, that's a really good take. And that's like I think that's like the first thing that I've always done moving into a new space is like, okay,
Gym.
where's my gym?
Yep.
Who's my people?
Yep.
And then so I think that's like, I think for everybody that should be like one of the priorities of when you move to somewhere new.
Yep.
Like, and maybe it's like maybe you're not that into fitness,
Yep.
but as far as like meeting people and just like feeling a part, like we're all humans, we all want to feel a part and connected to something.
Yeah, honestly, that's why I opened Power. I knew I was moving somewhere different. It wasn't about like, obviously I want to build a business out of it and have that aspect. Numerous times in the past of running a gym or being head coach at a gym and managing gyms, and I know the power of it. I actually was having this conversation with someone the other day in the gym. It's like, the thing I love about fitness is that it doesn't matter your socioeconomic status, your political beliefs, your cultural beliefs, your religious beliefs, any of it. The work is the work, right?
Yeah.
And that's all shared. And there's something beautiful to that because it brings people together that would never have come together.
Yeah.
Like all walks of life. I've seen people get married. I've seen best friends be like friendships begin because of fitness being that medium to just introduce people. And I'm like, if I could leverage that in a new community, like I know the rest will fall into pieces.
Yeah. And I think that's more important today than ever, especially with like how the last 3-4 years have been, right?
Yeah.
And then you're like, okay, COVID, that's cool. Let's open a gym. So I'm like, I'm excited to dive into that.
So I was running a gym in New York City at that time.
Okay. So right before you guys moved here?
So right before COVID, I was running a gym in New York City, like a luxury boutique gym in New York City called Ice NYC.
Is it like an athletic club type deal?
No, it was CrossFit and HIIT style. But like amenities, like really beautiful bathroom, showers, like not your CrossFit that you walk into now and like have to like take a shower after because your knees are dirty from burpees. Like it was spotless, like gold on the walls. Like it was really, really like upper tier. So I was doing that for about 2.5 years, 3 years, living in New York, and just kind of, I coached 15 hours a day. I trained full time to be an athlete. It actually allowed me to live my life very comfortably, like do the things I wanted to do, be single. Like I was dating Amy at the time. And then when COVID hit, we were engaged. We were married at that point. Married, had Coda. He was only 6 months old. But that really kind of reshifted our focus of what we wanted. I took things remotely for fitness, but it also gave me the chance to be a really present father. So COVID was kind of a blessing in disguise for us. Like it made us reshape what we wanted to like come get aligned. And that's what brought us to Charleston. At that point though, when we moved to Charleston, we were already like out of COVID and the gym fell in my lap. I don't know if I've ever told you this story. I was at a kid's birthday party like a month or two outside of moving to Charleston. Like we were already committed to moving to Sneak Farm, that townhouse that we were living in. Yeah. And a friend of mine who was a fitness consultant was at the birthday party. I told him I was moving to Charleston. And
so this was in New York?
In New York.
Okay.
We're in New York. We're like a couple months out from moving.
And you didn't have anything planned of like what you're going to do here yet?
I mean, I work remotely, right?
Oh,
like,
yeah,
so
yeah.
I had a big roster of like online training clients. And I was planning on building that or maybe finding remote work elsewhere. But I wasn't like too stressed about it. But at that birthday party, a friend of mine was asking about Charleston, and I actually told him about Charleston. He didn't know I was moving. He's like, "That's crazy. I just had a call like a day ago with clients that I was doing business consulting for, and I told them to close their gym in Charleston." I'm like, "Wow, that's weird." He's like, "You should talk to them and see if there's like anything there. Like maybe you could take over or something." And I was like, I don't know, man. I just got over COVID. Like this remote thing's kind of cool. Like running a gym, like you know how it goes. Like the grind is the grind.
The grind is
like,
the grind.
There's some awesome parts. Like I just talked about community.
Cool.
It's the grind though. Like it's a lot of give for very little take at times.
Yeah.
I mean, it still lights up my soul, but when I got on the phone with these women that were running the gym, they're like, basically just like, look, take over the lease. We don't want to do this anymore. And I looked at Amy, I'm like, should we do this? And she was like, you said you were never doing this again. I was like, but like, it's 6 minutes from the townhouse we just bought.
What are
Like,
the odds
yeah,
of
like
all
this
that
is
coming
serendipitous.
line?
Like,
Yeah.
this is kind of like eerily serendipitous. Like, I feel like this is a sign. And she's like, okay, like, sure. And here we are.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's how Power started. I don't know if most people know that, but it was
That's
never
insane.
the plan.
Yeah, that's crazy. Because I just assumed you guys were like, oh, like Charleston's a great spot. Like it's booming. That's where we're going. Like I always assumed that you moved down here because you wanted to do the gym here.
No, so we moved down here because I was working remotely. We were looking for something that was affordable where we could like quality of life could be aligned with what we were looking to do financially.
Yeah.
Also just lifestyle wise, like the beach was important to us, weather is important to us, community is important to us. We were looking at Florida, we looked at a few other places, and we're like, when we came here, it just felt like, you know what? Let's just do it.
Yeah.
So we bit the bullet and chose here, and the gym just kind of
You're like, I'm
along.
signing the lease. I'm signing the lease.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened.
I think, I mean, that story is a huge testament to like who you and Amy are. You know,
Yeah.
like when you have to, and I reflect a lot on my last year about this too, as far as like, okay, like was I almost playing the victim? Like, were there times in last year where I was like playing the victim of like instead of taking ownership of stuff?
Yeah.
And I think that's a great example of like when things happen out of like unexpectedly and they're massive like that, and instead of like being down about it, you pivot and you make a change, and you know great things can come of it if you follow that dream, right?
Yeah, I mean, to that point, right? Like just as human beings, I think you always have a choice, right, of how you respond to things. There's always going to be a stimulus. There's always going to be things that we can't control, but how we respond to it is in our control.
Yeah.
Right. And like adversity, hardship, beautiful things, they're all going to happen. It's just a matter of how you shape it, how you frame it, how you move on.
Yeah.
And I think like one of my superpowers is like not allowing failures to really, or like setbacks or things that most would like really let crush them, like deteriorate or like destroy me or allow me to feel bad for myself. It's just keep trudging like one step at a time, and there's only forward. That's it. Like you could change who you want to be or who you are tomorrow, right? Like it just starts with like, you were just telling me you want to run a half marathon. I'm sure a couple months ago, years ago, you'd be like, you're out of your mind.
Yeah.
But it was a decision. You're like, I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you will. And you'll probably enjoy it and do a marathon. And then
let's not get crazy.
Dude, just watch.
Yeah.
Just watch. Just watch.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. I think like you understand that it's just part of the process of where we're going. And you know exactly where you're going, right?
I have no clue, right? Like, look, I would say
you have goals, right?
So there's goals.
Yeah.
I would say that there's an ignorance to me that I'm not afraid of the work. I know that work's going to be there no matter what.
Yeah.
Meaning like whatever I decide to do or whatever I say that I want, there's going to be a cost dedicated to that. Whether it's financially, whether it's time, whatever it is, there's going to be something associated with that. Now, if I say I want it, I have to be okay with that sacrifice. I have to be okay with that cost. And there's no time horizon. If I really want something, it'll be tested to see how much I want it. But with that, I think the beauty of life and kind of the stage of where I'm at, or the things that I've done, is that it doesn't happen linearly. Like, it doesn't happen on your time horizon. It doesn't happen when you want it to. And sometimes opening a gym from a kid's birthday party will happen. You just have to be open to it.
Yeah.
You
gotta be looking for those opportunities, right?
Yes, but open.
Open
I think
to
open, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's a difference between wanting and needing.
Yeah.
Right. I feel like when you need something and you're desperate, it's usually won't find it because you're acting out of like necessity.
Yeah.
But if you're like, I want to do this and I'm going to make it happen at any cost, or just open to allowing it to happen, usually it will.
Yeah. So going back, I feel like we fast forward real fast.
Of course.
Going back to the soccer days.
Yeah.
So, did you play in like clubs, or was it like through the school?
So I played in some of the best clubs in New York. I played on the state team, regional team.
And you guys traveled a lot?
Every weekend. My mom and dad divided and conquered. Like, my dad would be with me. My mom would be with my sister. My sister played as well. She was 3 years younger than me. But it was every weekend. Like,
that's crazy commitment from the parents, right?
Yeah, we were in the car. Like, my mom would be taking us to practices sometimes like an hour away each direction, like 3 to 5 times a week.
That's insane.
Yeah, and like every state, different states every weekend. Like, it was a full-on commitment, but I loved it. I met some of my best friends, learned so much from that experience, and like, definitely am grateful that they like facilitated that. You know, like, now as a parent, I see how much they did, and I'm like, wow,
it's crazy.
It's wild. But I think as much as I loved it, I think they did as well. It gave them a little bit of purpose. It also gave them the opportunity to like bond with me in a different way. They also knew that like, by me pursuing soccer, it meant that I wasn't pursuing drugs, alcohol, doing something other than productive.
Yeah. So would you say that you're more like your mom? Is your sister
100%.
or like
Yeah, 100%. So my mom is introverted, she's kind, she's a giver, empathetic, one of the like most selfless people you ever meet. I'm not all those qualities, just so like my mom's a saint.
Yeah.
I'm more her in the introverted ways and empathetic.
Yeah.
My sister's like my dad. They're a little bit more outgoing, extroverted, high wired, high energy. I'm a little bit. There's definitely difference between the two of us.
Do you ever find that? Is it like, does it feel like effort when you're coaching? Because like, obviously when you're on the spot in front of 20 people, and at this point of your life, maybe that's just like natural.
Yeah.
But
I would say that in the beginning, yes. When I first started coaching, it definitely was like energy consuming, and definitely like I'd be nervous and stressed and turn bright red and didn't like that attention.
Yeah.
I also didn't like media attention. I didn't like being in the limelight. Like, if you asked me to be on a podcast like a couple, like 8 years ago, 10 years ago, I'd say no.
Yeah.
Right. Just because I hated attention, and knowing that it was going to be give someone potentially the opportunity to pick me apart.
Yeah. So was that the main fear?
Yes, but also not to dive too much into the self development world, but like, I know for me, one of the biggest things that I've worked on, or things that I'm conscious of, is imposter syndrome. And also, kind of, it's been a blessing and a curse. I have this mentality that if I'm only as good as yesterday, right? And everything that I've done is not who I am today. It's just eyes down, looking at the horizon, keep going. And there's always going to be someone better, which is great for competing. It's great for hard charging, but it's also not great for self-love or like being like content, right?
Yeah.
So that's been an evolution. But to the soccer days, like, there was a lot of amazing things that came from that. Like I love being part of a team. I think anyone who's been part of a team would relate. There's nothing like it in life.
Yeah, for sure. And then you went on and played college?
I did. I played a year at University of Albany. I didn't love college soccer. I definitely thought it was going to be different than it was. I thought it was going to be, I thought the level was going to be better per se. It was really focused on physical. It was focused on like a style of play that I didn't love. And I also just wanted to see if I could be good enough to go pro.
Yeah.
And that was kind of where I was at. And also at the school I was at, I was partying. I was taking classes like the culture and hip hop or rap. I was barely going to class, really just getting after it on the party side. And that after a year that I was like, ooh, don't know if I should
continue on.
Yeah. So.
And then you said you went to Belize or something?
Bolivia. So in Bolivia, I got to test my hand at seeing what pro was like. And I realized very quickly that I was a big fish in a small pond in the US or like at college or where I was. And I was with some of these men that were like on loans from like big professional teams. And I was like, I'm going to either end up a washed up soccer local here or die. Like it's like, cause it kind of was like giving a college kid who was partying at a university now the autonomy to be in a third world country where like $20 got you like a rap video night, just free range. Which was like, it was great and fun, but it also was like really introspective. Like you're partying really hard. These kids are better than you, even when you are trying really hard. They're just better. What are you going to do with your life? Like, this is not it. And I also, at that point, I just started really falling in love with CrossFit. I was always into fitness. Like from age like 12, 13, I fell in love with it. And it was always an underlying tone in my life, and gave me confidence and gave me all the things I needed at different stages. The relationship was always different with fitness, but it was always there. And I realized quickly in soccer that I was like, no, CrossFit's my passion. Like I want to scream this from the rooftops.
That's cool. Yeah. So were you doing CrossFit over there?
I was, but not like at a CrossFit gym. CrossFit early days, I don't know if you're familiar with it. It was like CrossFit.com, and that was about it. And the CrossFit Journal. So you kind of, it was like self-taught, follow these workouts, very underground. And there was not many gyms open, CrossFit gyms open. When I was in Bolivia, about 6 months into it, my dad called me from New York and was like, hey, just went to the doctor, just want to let you know, and I wanted your opinion. My cholesterol is really bad. He says I'm a little overweight. He's always been lean, naturally lean, but kind of had like a belly. Looked like a weekend warrior type. And he's like, can you help me with nutrition and diet and working out a little bit? And that was like the first time anyone besides friends, like bro sessions, like asked me for help. Put him on a paleo diet, got him doing like CrossFit style workouts 5 days a week. Went back to the doctor 3 months later, was like, you don't need the cholesterol medicine. You look like, and he put on visible muscle. He looked jacked. And it was like, he drank the Kool-Aid. He was all in. So when I asked him, I was like, hey, you did this. Like, you feel the same way I do. Would you like match the money? Like, let's open a gym. And he's like, okay, come home. Let's talk about it. The only caveat he gave me was, and this was from my mom, she's like, you have to go to college. If you're going to live under this roof and open up a gym at 18 with your father, you have to go to college. I put in all these applications to like community schools. Like I didn't want to go. I'm like, I'm a business owner. What do I need to go to college for? Like, don't need this. Don't need to waste the money doing it. She didn't tell me, but she put in like applications to like Columbia, NYU, like best schools in the, I'm like this degenerate from like, I'm like, lo and behold, I got into NYU. I mean, I should say she got into NYU. She wrote my letter, like put in the application,
crushed it
for me. Like, and she's like, all right, well, you got in. If you want to live here, you have to go. And that was like a trial by fire. Like it was my first real experience of like academics, that like running a business at 18, going to a school that was way above my pay grade. Like these kids were 10 times smarter than me. It was like being in Bolivia again, but like there was no out. Like I'm like, I have to like pass to, I'm paying, like I have to pass.
Yeah.
So that was a crazy experience for me in terms of like hyper competitive academics and managing yourself to like try to compete in CrossFit, run a gym, and succeed at academics.
Yeah. And you were 18?
18.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Because that's like a lot thrown on an 18-year-old.
Yeah, but like I said, ignorance is like a superpower of mine. And I mean ignorance in the sense of like, I never looked at it as the whole. Like now that I say that, I'm like, yo, give that to another 18-year-old. They're going to flop on their face. Give that to me now, I'm going to flop on my face. Like I couldn't handle that. But I didn't ever look at it of all the things. I looked at it just like one thing at a time. Just keep showing up for each. Yeah. You'll get it done. And I also didn't know the work that was involved for each. Like if I would have known how much work it would have been, I don't know if I would have signed up for all that.
Yeah.
But I didn't. And it was like,
sometimes ignorance is bliss though, right?
Seriously, it was. Yeah, 100%.
So you just enrolled in NYU.
Yep.
You're opening a gym at the same time. So so it's kind of cool. You and your dad are kind of doing the gym thing together. So you kind of get to do that. So what did your dad do before that? Like as you guys were growing up, what did your mom and dad do?
Mom and dad were both in the apparel business. So they sold sleepwear, so like pajamas, socks, licensed stuff. Like, so if you ever seen like SpongeBob pajamas or like Minecraft pajamas, my dad used to like license those and sell it to like Walmart, Target, Kohl's. And then he pivoted to Amazon. So they ran, I guess, a manufacturing company for mostly children's sleepwear. Yeah. And then socks.
So was that something of their own or was that for somebody?
So my dad, they both worked for other people and then opened up their own business. I think he opened his business in 2009 or 10, something along the lines.
Okay, so Amazon was just kind of like getting going.
Well, he wasn't always on Amazon.
Okay.
So he was in stores, and he like, I guess the ability to pivot is kind of from him because he was in stores, like he was in Walmart's, Target's, Kmart's when they existed, all these big box stores, and then
Kmart, man, R.I.P.
Right? Like
layaway. Are you kidding me?
Man.
Remember that?
I do.
Red light special, bro.
Oh, dude,
get out.
Not to come on my teacher, but like a friend of mine, I were teasing. Is like, do you remember when you used to go into supermarkets and see like 20% more on like cereals and like all these things? Now you go into stores, it's like you're gonna pay more and get less.
Yeah, that's true.
It's so bad.
It's so true.
It's so bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, my dad, he saw the writing on the wall. He started getting other competitors into what he was doing that were like way bigger than him, had deeper pockets. So he took a chance on Amazon, not knowing anything about it. In 2014, he went to Amazon and built a really successful Amazon business.
That's cool.
Yeah. And he sold it right before we moved, like 2021.
Okay. So right before they came down here.
Mm-hmm.
So your dad and your mom are pretty familiar. I would say you'd have to be somewhat business savvy to kind of go through all that, learn that.
Yep.
So he's kind of going into this gym with knowing some, not kind of like the blind leading the blind, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, look, we learned a lot.
Yeah.
Right. Like it was a trial by fire. I look back and I'm sure like if I said, what was your first personal training session like? You'd be like, cringe.
Almost killed the guy.
Yeah. Same. Yeah, like,
he wanted it. And I was giving him all the smoke. Yeah. And he passed the hell out.
Same. But yeah, no, I could say the same. And the gym was the same. Like, but it just kept on getting refined and refined and refined and refined. And we built like, and to circle back to the beginning, the power community. Like what I didn't expect to come from it was like celebrating Thanksgivings and Christmases with the members. Yeah. Like these people became part of my family. Like it was truly amazing. Like it filled our cups in such a way that like, even if it was like $1 billion company, which it was not, we barely broke even, right? Like, it just filled our cups in a social way that was like, couldn't even be quantified. It was really, truly incredible experience.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So what was the gym called?
Oside CrossFit.
Oside?
So my hometown was called Oceanside.
Okay.
We were Oside CrossFit.
Okay. So it was back in the hometown?
Back in the hometown.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Did you find that easier because you had so many relationships, or was it harder?
I thought it was harder actually because I grew up playing soccer. Everyone knew me that way. But you kind of have a hard time escaping the way that people knew you.
Yeah.
Right? Like whether it was like friends that you went out and partied with or parents that knew you from their kids. Like it's hard for people to let go of their perceptions of you or like maybe the history of how they know you versus like establishing a new relationship with a trainer. I think it also made me weary to ask people for things. You know what I mean? Like I knew kids that I went to high school with or kids, families that I knew. I didn't feel comfortable selling them. Yeah. Even though it wasn't selling them, I was helping them with fitness. It just felt like inorganic, right? Or I felt it was challenging at times.
Yeah. So how long was that gym open for?
2016, we sold to another gym locally just because I was pursuing the CrossFit Games. I was working I took on a role with a company called Rhino Co. where I was doing some project management for cool fitness projects. And then I was also running something called the New York Rhinos for the Grid League. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It was like co-ed fitness racing that was like on ESPN.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it was a GM of that at 23, right when I graduated college. And it was basically playing fantasy sports with like professional CrossFit athletes.
That's pretty cool.
It was amazing. I got to travel all over the US with like the best CrossFit athletes in the world.
How'd you get linked up with that?
The company I was working with, Rhino Co, bought a team, and one of my mentors, his name was Nathan Forster, knew that I took sports management as my degree. He gave me the shot. He just was like, "Hey, look, I know that you've been sticking around, you've been working hard in the company. Like, I think you're the right person for this." Like, he took a shot on me. Like, 23-year-old kid, I had gauges tattooed, like, just focused on competing and running.
Oh man, I need to see that. I need to see gauges.
Long hair.
I need to see it.
Oh man, it's there. But he took a shot on me, and it was incredible. Like it was, but I started to I don't want to say outgrow the gym, but the opportunities that were coming my way were far bigger than the gym.
Yeah.
And I felt like I lost a pulse on it.
Yeah.
I no longer was like invested or in it. And I knew that was the time to go.
Yeah. So do you think that NYU was a really good thing for you? Like when you look back at that, like I know it's kind of forced.
So I think it was a good thing that I got outside my comfort zone because I think anything outside of your comfort zone usually inspires some type of creativity or magic after that. But in terms of like, did I take advantage of fully what was available and the resources available to me at NYU? No, I didn't.
Yeah.
Was the cost high? Yes. I think the best thing that I learned from NYU is that I could do hard things.
Yeah.
Right? I kind of knew that I could do that physically, but academically and like mentally, I wasn't quite sure.
Yeah.
Right. But like once I started applying myself, I think I graduated with like a 3.4, 3.5.
Okay.
So like I started understanding how that instead of like feeling like I didn't belong and that C's were okay or D's were okay, like I could actually do well here if I actually tried a little bit. And I think that's the biggest takeaway. It's like apply yourself and you could probably be okay.
Yeah, I got a pretty crazy story. So in high school, like I literally got away with not doing much.
You and me both.
I cheated a lot.
Yep.
I copied a lot of homework, especially math. And then when you get into the college world, it's like you sink or swim. Like you're either gonna figure it out or not. So when I went to Like I graduated so low, like with GPA, my SAT combo, that there's a thing called the NCAA clearinghouse. Like you probably are really familiar with that. And I wasn't passing what you would consider eligible.
Yeah.
So I had to sit out my first game because we didn't find this out until like, I mean, it was probably a week before the first game, and the coach brought me in his office. He's like, "Hey, here's the situation. We're trying to balance this."
Yeah.
So I don't know how. I've never told this story to very many people.
Yeah,
So I had a really good teacher who really cared about me and really knew that, because I was so close for the clearinghouse.
Yeah.
So they went back and recalibrated their grades and noticed that
You were eligible.
I did, yeah, that I was eligible, and he submitted that because he knew that wasn't as important as this.
Yeah.
So like, is that like, so when I look at it now, obviously that was a massive thing that somebody did for me that allowed me to play literally the next week in my first college game ever, just by like taking a risk and going back and doing and making eligible a possibility. So that, like, I forgot where I was going with this story because I got all caught up in like how to explain it.
I think where that ties into both of our stories is that like there's definitely been people along the way that have taken chances.
Yeah.
And pulled or pushed me along. Like whether it's pulled or pushed, but definitely were like instrumental in helping me take the next steps.
Yeah.
In like whether I noticed it at the time or not.
Yeah.
And it like could have been something large or could have been something small, like barricading a grade or something like that, right? But I'm sure that made a difference to you.
It shouldn't happen. It shouldn't happen.
Did not. I'm saying hypothetically. But that person probably changed your complete trajectory of college, because then you actually tried. You're like, oh, I actually have to get good grades if I want to play.
Yeah.
Because getting on the field this time was all I want, and if I want to keep on doing that, then I need to keep on showing up for school.
And then, so leading into that, like when I got to Purdue, it's like, man, I got to really like figure out. It's almost like you have to learn how to learn.
Yep.
You know, like you have to learn how to take notes. You have to learn how you process.
Yep.
You have to learn all these things. So that's like one of the, like, I don't do anything with my degree anymore. I appreciate what I did with my degree. Like I taught and I coached and I loved it. But I no longer use that. And so like when I look back at my college experience, it's like, man, it wasn't my thing. I graduated with like a 3.4, I think.
Which is incredible.
Which is like compared to,
Dude.
It's like a lot of hard work. And it's like, it goes like a testament to like what you said is like, you know, you just got to like keep pushing through. And even if something's not your thing, you got to figure out how to make it your thing.
I think that there's this misconception that, and I think parenting, I'm sure you do the same with Legend. You're never gonna be good at something at your first try.
Yeah.
And for the person that is a curse.
Yeah.
Because I could speak to the CrossFit world or the soccer world. The people that were naturally talented and didn't have to work didn't go as far.
Yeah.
And because they never understood like that the work is really where the magic happens.
Yeah.
I was never physically gifted. Like, yes, I'm athletic, but I've always had to work really hard, like to be a Division I athlete, to be a CrossFit Games athlete, to be like these things don't. It wasn't like, oh, I showed up at a CrossFit gym and all of a sudden I was a Games athlete. No, that wasn't my story.
Yeah.
Like it took me nearly like 6 to 8 years to finally get those pair of shorts. Like, but I didn't accept that I wasn't going to get that. And I think knowing that as long as you're consistent and persistent, that something good's going to happen it'll pull you through anything.
Yeah.
Like with your story with college, like I knew that if I kept on showing up, like I'm going to pass this, it's going to end. Yeah. Like there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Yeah. Like this isn't my forever state. I know David Goggins was talking. I listened to a podcast with David Goggins and Huberman, like on the way here, and he was talking about like I am not, he's like, I read a page and it takes me like 10 times through to read that page. But like, to that sentiment, that's a superpower, right? Like if you would have just absorbed it first go around, you wouldn't appreciate it or absorb it or like work as hard to get to understand or absorb that knowledge or to receive that skill. So I think being an underdog, being someone who has to work for things in life is kind of a superpower.
Yeah, for sure. And I think sometimes we just don't realize it.
Yeah.
You know, but a lot of the testament is like, I feel like people that we surround ourselves with too, and that support system of like, put it like for me, like I was put in a great situation.
Yeah.
Because of the people around me.
Yes.
Because they cared and because they wanted more for me.
Yep.
But like skipping over to that, let's talk about like your CrossFit experience as far as like you started it, like you realized that you really like CrossFit and it was something that you were passionate about and you know it tied in with fitness. And then like how do you go from there to like, okay, I want to compete in this. Okay, I want to be a serious contender in this, and then to a games athlete.
I think that was one of the first times in my life that I consciously put down a goal and was like, I don't care what I have to do. I'm going to get it. Like, I don't care how long this takes. I don't care what the work that has to go in. I don't care. I don't care of the steps or like, obviously those are important, but I don't care. The only thing that matters to me is that I achieve this. And I'm not going to say that I want to achieve it. I'm going to. And that was really the first time that I like did that in my life at 18. And when I said it out loud to people, some people like laughed at me, like, especially people in the CrossFit community that were already in it. They were like, Ian, what are you, like, do you know, like if someone walked into the gym and like, hey, I want to be the world's strongest man, and they barely could lift 200-pound deadlift, you're like, dude,
That's work.
I hate to break it to you, but
I'm trying to shatter your dreams.
I can't transport you to Narnia, right? Like, but that's what it was like. Like I just put it out there and decided that was what I was going to do, and through that process, I was hungry for knowledge, hungry to get better. I surrounded myself and found the best people that were doing the best things. Like I just try to grow and learn from whoever would teach me. And fast forward, like along the way, like every event I went to, like I just got out there. I put myself out there.
Do you remember your first event?
Oh yeah, horrible.
Yeah, not good.
Oh, I got soul crushed.
Yeah,
like really bad. So one of my first events, and I was fit, but like I couldn't do double unders that well. And just I remember looking around and being like, what the heck? Like, how can I do this? I think more humbly though, like the first event was challenging and definitely like hit a chord, but like my first dance with ego and like knowing that I needed to put that aside was my first CrossFit class. I was like 16 years old, 17 years old, went to a CrossFit class, and there was a games competitor in the class. I had no idea who he was, but he looked, I sized him up like any other athlete would, be like, I'm a D1 athlete.
I love how you go into a room, and I'm sure you still do it to this day.
Yes and no.
You can say no, but
the only reason I don't anymore is because CrossFit taught me otherwise.
Yeah.
But it used to be like I'll go into a room like, I'm a D1.
Who's the dragon?
Yeah.
Who's the fire breathing dragon? Because I'm
gonna take that motherfucker down. Excuse me for cursing.
No, you're good.
I'm gonna take that guy down. There was him. He was the guy.
Yeah.
And I thought I was gonna come in and take him down. Lo and behold, I got smoked.
Yeah.
Like I'm talking about like 10-minute beat down, like embarrassing. But I was like, that's not gonna happen again. Like I'm just gonna get better. So I kind of like accepted that along the way that there was going to be beatdowns. But I think for the one competition that really kind of was my changing point was I was still a kid. I was like 18 years old competing in this, like not even like grown man strong yet. And I went to a competition, and it was like a fairly big one in the Northeast, back in CrossFit New England. And there was all these dudes that were like, they looked strong.
Yeah.
Like they looked, I barely had abs. Like I looked like just lean and skinny. I looked like a soccer player.
Soccer player, yeah.
These dudes looked like Dwayne the Rock Johnson.
Yeah.
Like, they looked like Jason Statham. Like I'm like, yo, what am I doing?
Yeah.
And they're shirtless going into this event, and I crushed all of them. Like crushed them.
Yeah.
And I just was like, oh, this is gonna be fun.
Yeah.
Like that was my first come to moment of like, okay, appearance doesn't matter in this.
Yeah.
There's no coach telling me if I can play or not play. There's no politics or bureaucracy behind this sport. My work or what I put in is going to be what the fruit of it. Like the fruit of my labor is how hard I work. And I loved it. I truly loved it. One of the biggest transitions, and I don't know if you experienced this, but like going from a team sport where I could be like, yo, Tim didn't pass the ball well in second half. That's why they scored. Yeah. Not that I ever was that guy to point fingers, but there kind of was hiding. You could hide if you wanted to. In individual sport, you can't hide. Yeah. Like it's you versus you. And if you mess up, it's just you. Like there's no one to blame but you. Yeah. You can't blame the judge, the ref, whatever. Like it's you.
You either lifted the weight or you didn't lift the weight.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep. And I loved it. I truly loved it.
And I think back, one moment of our relationship that stands out to me is like, it's probably a lot like that fire breather that you were going with in your first competition. I think it was that class, the competition, or whatever. Yeah. It's when you see somebody do something that you didn't really think is possible, it takes you up to the next level, right? Yeah. So like I remember we were doing, I think it was the first year, I'm not a big CrossFit guy. I dabble, I'm more of a strength guy, but I like challenge myself. Yeah. I like a lot of things about CrossFit. Yep. And we did the Sacred Pine, and you and what was your partner's name? Owen. Yep. You and Owen, and it was like, I forget what workout. It was the bike. It was calories on the bike.
Thrusters. I remember.
And thrusters. Yeah. And me and my partner, we finished, I think, first in our heat, and we finished in like 6 minutes. Yep. Or no, the time cap was 6. We finished in like 5, like early 5s. Yep. Most people are capping this thing out. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like this, we might be able to get on the stage because of this. Yep. And then the second heat with you and Owen went. I had no idea that somebody could do that workout. I think you guys did it in like 2 something. It was like high 2s, low 3s. Yeah. It was like the craziest thing I've ever seen in fitness. Yeah. You guys just cranked it out, and like you were digging. Like it was just 100. Like the speed was 100 the whole entire 3 minutes, and it was gnarly. Like I was like, but what it did to me, it was like, oh my gosh, like. Yeah. Am I pushing it as hard as I can? Am I full tilt the whole time? So things like that get you thinking, and like I think it definitely takes you to the next level.
The ceiling is only to that of your surroundings.
Yeah.
Right? Like
true in life.
Yeah. I think in training, like I draw a lot of like my life lessons from fitness just because I feel like, or sport, just because I feel like it's so similar, like on a micro scale. But I only got really good when I started getting outside of my comfort zone and training with people that were like exponentially better than me.
Yeah.
Right. Like you only like losing so much, right? Or can accept losing that much, right? Like I remember one of my training partners, so Annie Thorstadter, which I'm sure you're familiar with in CrossFit, her husband, I lived with them for a little bit. Her husband was my training partner. He's a multiple year games athlete. The guy's one of the fittest human beings I know. He used to put this smack down on me every day, right? I vividly remember the first time I beat him in a workout. And it was like, oh, okay. Yeah. And then it was like the foot was on the gas. The confidence changed. It was like the ceiling was now different. It's like you enter a room and you're confident with the next level. It's almost like playing a video game where you just keep on leveling up. It's like level 1, level 2. But the beauty of CrossFit and fitness, or just fitness as a whole, you can't fucking win. Excuse me, language. You can't win.
Yeah.
Like as soon as you beat that next level, there's a bigger, stronger, faster dragon.
Yeah.
Whether that's financially, whether that's emotionally, whether that's spiritually, whether that's as a husband, father, there's always something else that's going to peek its head around and be like, oh, you thought you were good?
Yeah.
Just watch.
Yeah.
And I love that. I like to see what I'm capable of and what I'm made of through different tests. Like same as you, like I ran around the Mount Pleasant track for 6 hours and did a 50K.
You're crazy.
And the only reason I did that, truthfully, like honestly, people ask why I did that. And like really why I did that was I felt like I was at a stage of life where things started getting complicated.
Yeah.
And I didn't know if I could still swim in the deep end.
Yeah.
And I needed to jump into the deep end and be like, you know what? One thing's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I know, and something that I'm working on for 2024, and I'm sure that you're the same, is that I never look back. Like this conversation, I never think of the trajectory of where I've gone, like, or what got me to where I am. I'm always eyes on the horizon and looking around and who's next to me and how do I beat them.
Yeah.
CrossFit kind of taught me that I need to stay in my lane and focus on me and the things I can control, because I'm not actually racing against you.
Yeah.
I can't control what you do. I can control what I do. But when you're constantly focused on the horizon, you lose sight of all the beauty that's happened.
Yeah.
And for me, that it's been a blessing, but it could also be a curse.
Yeah.
And I'm definitely aware of like how to be a little bit more grateful and appreciate the things that I have and the people that have been in my life. And a big word is I just want to be of service, right?
Yeah.
Like, and I think the best times of my life and the things being a father has really taught me is like, it comes down to just be of service to other human beings.
Yeah.
And that's where it all, like, the good things lie on the other side of that.
Yeah. There's two big things that I thought of as you were saying that. The first thing was kind of like going right off that, piggybacking off that, is just it's super easy to get caught up in what's next, and we lose sight of like just enjoying where we're at. You know, like I've heard this one quote where it was like, you said you'd be happy if you accomplished the goals that you've already accomplished.
Yep.
So it's like
Chris Williamson and Hermosi, right? Yeah.
It's this constant drive forward, right? And we have to do and athletics does that to us, right?
Yeah.
And it's just like we gotta learn how to
hone
somewhat enjoy the journey at the same time.
I think having a child makes you present.
Yeah.
It reels you back in.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but like we talk a lot about athletics and things that we've learned from it. I mean, I speak pretty openly about it, but like post-athlete, like my CrossFit career, like serious depression. Like I went through a deep like spiral of like not knowing who I was, what value I offered to the world, and like still navigating that, right? Like I wouldn't say that it's like I'm 100% out of it, but I definitely am aware of like the human being I want to be and the standard that I hold to this world. But like, it's a slippery slope when your self-worth is predicated on achievements.
Yeah.
Or the identity that you've created for yourself or what you think others perceive you to be. It's like, you're not actually playing for yourself to level up. You're playing because you're scared of losing.
Yeah. And that's great. I think that's the best part of this whole podcast. So
yeah,
far.
No,
you're just sitting over here.
Yeah, no, the podcast that I used to do was, and it kind of seems similar to why you started yours. I started mine in 2017. I just had shoulder surgery post placing 4th place at the CrossFit Games on a team, which felt like a letdown. Felt like the first loser, or like I might as well have come in last place.
Yeah,
instead of the podium.
Top 3.
Yeah, you want to be on the podium.
Yeah,
and it felt like a letdown. Felt like a year in my life. The sole focus was that, but we didn't achieve that. But I got to talking to a lot of really cool people, and some awesome conversations were had, and it opened my eyes to like we're continuously evolving as human beings, right? And to be stuck on one thing or think that you're only capable of one thing is a disservice to you and your community. Yeah. Right. Like, I mean, not that I have it figured out, because I don't. Like, not at all. But the only person that you actually owe holding a standard or doing the thing, like making sure your priorities are aligning with your actions to, is yourself. Right. Like, and your family, right? Your wife deserves that. Your son deserves that. But like, the standard that you set and the person that you want to be is only owed to them and yourself. Right. Like, and it's when I started, and I think social media does a really poor job of it. It's like, you're constantly looking at what other people are doing. Yeah. You're seeing these highlight reels and people crushing it and the likes and the views. And it's like this gamified version of like, could either make you feel like you're awesome or you're nowhere near where you should be. Yeah. And it's dangerous. I think it's going to lead to a mental health crisis. Personally, I don't think COVID was the issue. Like, I think social media and lack of human interaction is going to cause a spiral of people being really messed up. Yeah. I think conversations, community, tribe, building with other people is what it's about. You've seen it over the years. Like, magic has happened, and best of times and are when people are aligned and altruistic and of service to each other to help each other build, versus like purely capitalistic and selfishly or intrinsically motivated. Yeah,
For sure. Time out.
Yeah.
I'm sorry about all the breaks there. I'm still getting adjusted to the morning. So we were just talking about cold plunging, like our morning routines. Yep. And you were talking about yours. Like, what's that look like for you right now?
So every morning I wake up anywhere from like 3 to 5 a.m. 3 is kind of the middle of the night, but that's when I wake up. I jump in the cold plunge as soon as I wake up. Go outside, jump right in. I wouldn't say jump right in. I usually stare at it for maybe what feels like 2-3 minutes, contemplate life decisions. There's definitely a few mental gymnastics and hurdles that I have to go through. Like, what are you doing? This is stupid. Like, you could do it later in the day when the sun's out.
Yeah.
But I jump in, go like anywhere from 4 to 5 minutes now. Then I go inside, hop on the assault bike, and do some sprints. And the theory behind that is, if I could start my day with something that's like, I ultimately don't want to do. I don't want to do either of those things. Like, yeah. I like the assault bike.
Says nobody. Says Ian.
So let me preface that. I like the aftermath of the assault bike. I like how fit it makes you. But I don't actually like those two things. But I know that if I do that, I've already checked 2 boxes before most human beings have. And I've overcome something that didn't want to do. Yeah. And there's like, the rest of my day is usually on a good trajectory from that.
Yeah.
So,
and I take a cold shower every morning, because we don't have a cold plunge, but I do cold plunge every now and again when that's available. I think it's awesome. I feel great after it.
Yeah.
And I take a cold shower in the morning. And here it's like, it's probably really cold shower for like maybe 2 months. And we're in one of those months. So like the last 3 weeks of the showers are pretty rough. Yeah. And it's like one spot, and then you like turn and it's the other spot. But yeah, just like you, like I literally get in that shower and I stare at that shower head and just think about some things. Yeah. And then I'm like, I just know, I'm like, all right, control the breathing. And I'm like, let's go.
There's an addiction to some degree of like knowing that on the other side of those thoughts are like staring and waiting for the hard thing to happen.
Yeah.
Something good's good. You're going to feel good after it. Or like there's some type of confidence or some type of like mental skill, like building muscle, right? Like on the end of those bicep curls, you're building something, right? It's not necessarily quantifiable, but like you're building something. But yeah, I definitely think starting your day with something hard or doing something that's like challenging puts you on a foot to the rest to kind of be easy. It's like eating the broccoli first and then getting to have some dessert after.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. All right, man. Well, I know we got some busy days ahead of us, and we got to roll. And I feel like there's so much more we got to cover. So hopefully we'll come back and do a round 2, because I want to dive into Amy and how you guys met. And I mean, she's a freaking. I'm sure she has an amazing story.
Wild one. Like all of
Yeah,
us, right? We're all stories.
yeah. So super excited to hear all that. But I really appreciate your time today, man. It was amazing. And I just appreciate who you are and what you bring to the community here and into our lives. And I know that when we were neighbors, like, it was awesome to see Coda and like how great of a dad you are.
Oh, thank you. That means that's the best compliment you paid me all day.
Yeah, like you did. Like every time I'm driving home, you're pushing him out in the stroller and just like hoping he falls asleep, and it never hardly ever happened.
Yep.
Or he's just yeah.
Dang it, I thought you were asleep.
Yeah. Or he's sprinting down in that parking lot on his bike, man. Yeah. But I know you're a great dad, and super proud of you guys in the gym. I know we hear people come in here, Project Lead Nation, all the time, and see how all the great things that you guys do. And so just appreciate you in our community as a dad, as a fellow dad, and just as a human, man. Really appreciate you. And then hopefully we get to do this again.
Let me know when. Thank you for having me, dude.
All right, brother.
Sweet.